Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Sour Patch Journals, where, your girl basically explains her, used to be at least, crazy ass life and the lessons I learned from it. So, in my previous episode, it was an episode dedicated to my mom. Shout out to my mama. I love you. And it just talked about how we had our hardships while I was growing up, and it really affected me as a kid and pretty much drooped into me being an adult. I, especially a teenager, carried myself all types of crazy because I was just so angry, and I had to learn how to just let it go. I know I told people in the last episode, tell your mom or tell your parents that you love them, and I know some people don't actually talk to their parents. I get that. So, just pray if you got to, or maybe if you don't pray, you choose to do something different than that. That's fine, totally. But just know it's just not healthy to hold on to all of that anger. And this is coming from someone who's been angry all the time. Like, I was there. So I definitely understand. I get it. It's not me putting myself above anybody or telling you what to do. It's more, hey, like, maybe sometimes it's better to just let that anger go so you can heal and you can prosper. You gotta grow. Come on now, evolve. So today's episode is gonna be a little bit deeper and interesting. I call it "You're Not My Dad," where I literally found out my dad was not my dad. That's a little crazy to find out as a kid. So, as I mentioned in my previous episode, I was adopted as a kid. I wasn't raised by my mother or my father. I wasn't raised from either or. So, it started off back then. I was actually a foster child before I was adopted. And what I mean by foster child, I don't mean like I was put into foster care. I wasn't, but that's where it was headed if my caretaker didn't take me in. So there was one man I was made to believe was my father throughout my childhood. What I remember, taking care of me, bought clothes, I guess, toys and stuff, up until I was like the age of 4. I vaguely remember at that age my mother and this man, who I considered dad, papa, father, whatever at the time. I remember they were ducked off in the corner speaking and everything. And they were speaking like pretty quietly. I'm just on the couch. I'm not paying no mind. I'm supposed to be pretending that I'm asleep anyways. But the next thing I know, after hearing them, whisper and here and there, I hear him kind of like raise at the top of his voice along the lines of, "That child on the couch is not my daughter." And I heard that, and honestly, it stuck with me since then. And after hearing that, I'm like, what does that mean? As a 4-year-old little girl, I'm like, this is my father. What does that mean? So I ended up going to my caretaker, of course, and telling her, these were the words that this man repeated, this man that I was to believe was my father. And she ends up going to go take a paternity test because she saw like that really hurt me. I was crying like I'm about to do now, because it's like, well, damn. What do you mean? I'm the only child on this couch, so who are you talking about other than me? I remember that just really breaking my heart. Like, the whole thing with my mom, that was heartbreak number 1. Whole thing with my dad, heartbreak number 2. And it was just like I didn't know what to do. I was confused. So I went back to my caretaker, let her know this is what was said. And she was like, all right, well, we're just going to take a paternity test to see like what that was really about. Like, is that my dad or is that not my dad? So I remember going to go take the test. I remember, having little swabs in my mouth to get the DNA. And that was pretty much about it. Like, that was the end of the story on my end. So as the results came back, she had told me it was confirmed that he is not my father. And obviously that broke me as a kid because I'm like, well, I've been told my whole life that this one guy is my dad, so what am I supposed to believe, you know? And I never saw a paper confirming he wasn't my dad, but it was word to mouth. She was telling me, you know, he's not. She got the confirmation he's not my father. Like, Murray, you are not the father. But as I got older, you know, well, not even older, it started really young, but again, as I got older, remember I told you those certain blood members like to plant seeds in people's heads and water them? Yeah. A certain blood member definitely had told me, like, my caretaker lied about it, that he is my father, and she lied about taking the actual paternity test. And I just remember blood members saying, hey, he's still your father, he's your father, or not still, but he's your father, this is your father. Like, even though I was told by my caretaker that this man I looked at as my father isn't, my blood members, and including my mom, you know, kept saying that, yeah, this is your father, and she's lying, and all types of stuff, you know. So as a kid, that rooted in me, and it started to, that's where, like, a lot of my anger festered outside of the whole thing with my mother and, you know, me being adopted and me trying to understand the whole he's your father, and then my caretaker telling me he's not my father, but blood telling me he is, and it was just a bunch of back and forth. I was really confused, and instead of letting everybody know I'm confused, you know, that confusion just turned straight to anger. You know, my ruling emotion was anger. I was just driven on it. So I started, again, I defied my caretaker for so many different reasons, and a lot of it was because I just didn't know how to express that I was confused or sad or angry. You know, I couldn't say it to word, I couldn't say it to mouth, so I had to do it in action, and I did a lot of shit in action over this. I remember there was a time period around middle school where this said father of mine, who I was still calling father despite the fact that my caretaker told me we took the paternity test and he's not, I was going along the lines of what blood was telling me. You know, she's a liar, this is your dad, this and that. So somewhere in middle school, he was incarcerated, and I hadn't really seen him in person since after some blood or family members, some family party that we had years ago, prior to me being in middle school. So I hadn't talked to him since then, or hadn't even seen him. So sometime in middle school, I remember specifically being on a 3-way call between me, him, and my mother, you know, because even though at the time I was saying, you know, this is my father, I felt uncomfortable just speaking to him by myself. So, you know, I had to have my mom as the third party, you know, and I spoke to him. I don't really remember what the conversation was about, if I'm being honest. That was years ago. But I definitely remember having that jail call, you know, and that was that. That's just a factor that I put in there. Which, by the way, I would like to say, middle school was such a depressing time for me. Like, this was around the time where depression really started to hit, because, you know, puberty and emotions, and that's when I really tried to assess the difference between what blood was telling me versus my caretaker, and it was just so many voices in my head. So depression really started to hit hard, which depression also seeped into high school, of course. I mean, I feel like, personally, depression is something that you're always going to deal with once you have it. And I'm pretty sure, like, I'm not saying everybody has depression, but I feel like most people deep down have depression. And you're always going to deal with it. It's just a matter of how are you going to go about it. And me, like, that's another story, but there were multiple different ways of me going about my depression. And I went down different routes. But, I mean, hey, here I am to tell y'all, like, I'm alive. I survived. So if I survived, you can. Anyways, not trying to get off sidetrack. There was a time, as I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, my blood members had cut me off somewhere in high school, late. It was like mid high school. They had cut me off, and when I finally came back around after being cut off for that year, that same blood member who told me that my caretaker was a liar and that this really is my father, that summer she had told me, like, deep in depth of how my caretaker was a liar. She was telling me that my caretaker didn't like the things that my so-called father was in, aka drugs and whatnot, a bunch of other stuff. She didn't like that lifestyle, and she didn't want that lifestyle for me. So she faked the paternity test. She lied about it. Don't believe her. It's not real. Then what really made me believe her is because she asked me if I saw the paper confirming that he's not my father. And I said, no, I don't recall. I was a kid at the time. So it's like, no, I don't remember. And she was like, see, there you go. She don't even have the evidence to back it up. She faked it. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're kind of right. Like, she definitely probably did fake it. And then another part that she told me that made the lie that she was saying more believable. She was saying that, he was incarcerated at the time. There was no way for her to even get the blood test. And I'm like, dang, you know what? That might actually be true. So, again, I ended up defying even more after finding more about this so-called truth that was this seed that was planted in my head. And at the time that this conversation was taking place, that summer after I was cut off by blood members, she had also stated during that time where I wasn't there, he had ended up showing up for another blood member's birthday, and while he was there at this birthday, or evolution day that I like to call it, while he was there, he was still considering me his daughter. He was still considering me his child. By this time, I was in high school, so like this lie has been built over many, many years. So that's a huge part in the actions that I decided to take in defiance over the years. It was like the whole back and forth, not knowing who to trust, not knowing who to believe, not knowing what was real and what was not. I fell into a cycle of just repeating that pattern and just listening to people that I most likely shouldn't have been listening to, instead of really listening to myself and even the people who are actually trying to help me. I ended up like losing my way because I just had too many people in my ear, too many seeds being planted. And as I said before, I don't understand why blood did that to me to begin with. But I mean, sometimes you're really not going to understand the workings in the mind of another being, especially when they're in denial of the pain and the hurt and the trauma that they went through themselves. So, just be mindful of that and be mindful of who you actually listen to. Before I get to my lessons, I do want to say I actually ended up getting that paper, seeing that paper, because I had finally built up the courage and the confidence to ask my caretaker and let her know, like, hey, like, this blood member told me this and told me that you were lying and that you faked it. So can I have that paper for confirmation that you didn't? And of course, she straight was like, yeah, like, I don't know why you didn't ask me that all these years beforehand. And it's because I don't know. I wanted to believe one thing was, I wanted to believe that these certain blood members was telling me the truth. I wanted to believe, like, this is my dad. I wanted to believe so much. And, sometimes it really be the people that you want their support. You want them to believe in you. You want to believe what they say. And it be those people that really aren't the ones that you think that they were. So as far as lessons, girl, guy, whoever's listening, do not listen to that he say, she say shit. It's not worth it. Like, you go and get some hardcore evidence before you make a certain action or a certain choice, a decision. Get that evidence, get for any and everything. Hardcore evidence is important. Don't have a middle person. Do not have no middle party. Go to that person directly, let them know what's up, or let them know you got a concern, or anything like that. Never have a middle person, because people like to play telephone, and people like to switch things up in the middle of playing telephone, as we played as kids. Like, we know this. As kids, they taught us. And then, on top of that, the most important thing that I could stress, that I can't stress enough on this episode: don't let what you don't have make you miss out on what you do have. And don't let it ruin it either. Whole time I'm sitting here worried about, oh my God, I don't have a dad, and I don't know if this man is my father or not. The whole time my older brother, that was my father figure. That is the person I needed to treat well. And there was a time period where I literally almost lost him. He was not talking to me or anything because of the defiance and the things that I was doing out of hatred and out of anger and confusion. Instead of me going to talk to them about how I'm feeling and talk to them about these mixed messages and these mixed signals that I was getting, I just defied, and I nearly lost somebody so important to me. Even to this day, I tell him, my caretaker, I tell those same people who've been in my corner, no matter how fucking crazy I ended up going, that I really fucking appreciate them. Because if it was not for them, I would not be here today. The person you guys are listening to, the emotions running through, like, I wouldn't be the same person today if it was not for them. I wouldn't have, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of knowledge from going out and doing stupid shit. But they were who built the base for me. And I nearly fucked that up because I wanted to go believe other people who didn't actually have good intentions for me, instead of focusing on the fact that, yeah, I might not have my actual mother, but I have this wonderful caretaker who took me in and decided to show me different and raise me in a different light than today's generation. I had a brother who taught me so much shit. I mean, he was like, you're not gonna be some girl stuck on the side of the road who don't know how to change her tire. I'm gonna teach you how to change your tires. I mean, and he taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to go fishing. He taught me kayaking, canoeing, so much that I took for granted because my eyes were focused elsewhere. And I had to scale back down and realize, damn, the things that they did for me in my childhood, I realized not a lot of people, especially my age, even had access to that stuff. For goodness sake, they paid for a dance school because I wanted to dance. Like, and that dance school was not cheap, let me tell you. Yeah, I only was there for a year, but a year was enough for me. Like, they really did a lot that I took for granted and couldn't see. So, don't take that for granted. Don't pull a me, bro. You don't want to pull a me. Appreciate what you have, because like they say, that phrase that everybody don't want to listen to, or that's so cliche, you don't appreciate what you have until you don't have it anymore. And I had to really like learn that myself. So hope you guys resonated with something that was in this podcast. I know I get emotional every time, but like, I'm an emotional person. So if you're going to keep listening, get used to it. It's going to happen. I'm going to have my laughs. I'm going to have my cries. I'm going to have my up and downs. Like, I'm not some robot. I'm not just a stick. You know, I don't rule off of one emotion anymore, which one emotion for me at the time was anger. I don't rule off of that anymore. I'm here to show I have all different types of emotions. My personality is more than just what you see. It's like, it's what I breathe, it's what I think, it's what I say, it's everything. Everything that I do or believe, it makes me who I am. I'm not just one little category. I'm not just this one word. No, like, and that's what we fail to realize. We just put a person as this one word and we put them in a box, and then that's that. Like, no, we're not in a box. We shouldn't be put in boxes. We're ourselves. Why can't we just be accepted as ourselves, you know? And if you don't accept me as me, and if you don't accept me for the emotional person that I am, I mean, this podcast just is not right for you. Or maybe podcast is not right for you, period. I don't know. You got to figure that out on your own. Don't project that over here, though. But again, if anything resonated with you, or, you know, you want me to talk about something, or you want to tell me a story of your own that you want me to either take privately and just talk to you privately, or just put it on the, I don't know, whatever you want me to do, whatever y'all want me to talk about, let me know. You can either find me at Big Tiny on Instagram, and usually my pictures and my backgrounds are going to be red, so look for red. Or you can find me on my main page, which is tiny.sbk. The little name handle is extraterrestrial, so you can also look that up. My YouTube, Big Tiny or Tiny SBK, I'm trying to get that out there more. I realized when I went to go search my name, it don't really pop up because there are other people who have Big Tiny, which is like insane. So I'm gonna work on that. But if you look up "Is Your Family Toxic" and then put Big Tiny in the little bar on YouTube, you will find me. I'm right there. You know, tune into the other episodes so you can follow the little storyline and follow the lessons. But at the same time, if you don't tune into those, that's okay, because I mean, the lessons do definitely repeat. They say that spirit, God, whoever, they're gonna make you repeat these lessons, or they're gonna make you repeat this cycle until you break it and learn it. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here for you to either learn it through myself, my words, and you just be like, okay, yeah, I get it. Or you do it from your own life experience. Everybody's life experience is different. So that's enough of me rambling. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week, the rest of your weekend, whenever you're listening to this. And y'all stay weird. That's going to be my new outro. Stay weird, bro. Don't be like everybody else. Stay weird. Stay true to yourself. Be who the fuck you are. What is that? Be who you are for your pride. Yes, be who you are. Literally. I know that might have been off key. Whatever. Anyways, there's much love to spread. Peace to spread. And peace out, beautiful souls.